shit got real emotional real fast. Let's drop this spoiler warning right off the bat, get it out of the way, great. If you want to read along, make sure to open up volume 20 of the first part of All Out War in the comics. But let's get to the super sad stuff now, shall we? Time to dive into how the tragic events of Season 8, Episode 4 translate from panel to screen. Episode 804 of The Walking Dead, titled Some Guy, that's pretty mysterious, was directed by Dan Liu, who's been the leading man for over 20 separate episodes to date, along with a web series spin-off of the series from 2012.
Got him!
The episode was written by David Leslie Johnson, an incredibly seasoned writer. This goes without saying, this episode was in good hands. But this doesn't mean everything was rainbows and sunshine. Quite the opposite. After Ezekiel's inspiring speech to the kingdom before they go off to war,
"We will fight, and yet I smile."
The squad gets wrecked. Not smiling now, are you, Ezekiel? His Royal Highness survives in both mediums, but has to escape to save himself. This scene begins similarly in the comics, where Ezekiel is almost shot and killed by the Saviors. After the initial hit is where the scenes diverge in either medium. In the comics, his undead friends save him by consuming the Saviors. Also among the dead in the comics is his bodyguard Richard, who died in the show during Season 7, Episode 13 when Morgan strangles him. Richard plays a bigger role on the show, whereas he's only in the comics spanning from issue 115 to 118. In the show, Ezekiel is saved by one of his surviving soldiers, Alvaro, who escorts him to safety. Almost. Not quite. Ezekiel's capture by this Jeffrey Dahmer-looking savior does not occur in the comics. Therefore, Jerry, who isn't a character in the pages, does not chop this dude into like 8,000 pieces. I mean, it's more like 2, but you get the idea. It's also important to note the narrative differences. In the show, this was all told in a flash forward. In comparison, this happens during issue 118 of the comics, but it's told in a flashback with Ezekiel narrating. Carol, after killing the initial shooters, follows the foot soldiers who are trying to get their heavy-duty artillery over to the sanctuary to clear the herd of walkers. This scene doesn't occur in the comics at all due to Carol not existing at this point, but the way she uses walkers to her advantage is similar to how walkers help Ezekiel escape from the Saviors in issue 118 after his men are shot down. In both instances, walkers are used to help the good guys. Hooray, walkers! After this occurs though, 2 of the Saviors escape with the guns, driving them back towards the sanctuary. Rick and Daryl come whooshing out of nowhere to save the day! Hooray! This doesn't occur in the comics at all, due to the fact that Daryl doesn't exist within the pages.
Got the guns.
This is a cause for celebration!
You look like shit.
Well, that works. But the next scene is not something to cheer about. The biggest comic to show parallel was also the most devastating one. Yep, we're talking Shiva's Death. The comic and show both featured Ezekiel getting trapped in a quarry full of walkers, where he was gloriously saved by his tiger Shiva. She leaps to the rescue, kills some of the walkers, but ultimately gets surrounded and consumed by them as Ezekiel reluctantly makes his escape.
Damn it, let me help her.
In the comics, this scene continues about halfway through Ezekiel's flashback. The former zookeeper dodges walkers by running into the forest, where he falls into a quarry and is nearly consumed by the walkers. Out of nowhere, Shiva saves him by sacrificing herself, which gives Ezekiel time to escape. In the show, Ezekiel runs from walkers into the woods, but is accompanied by Jerry and Carol, who are not in the comics at this point. Jerry doesn't exist at all, and Carol died long ago in the book. They fight off some walkers, and Ezekiel tells Jerry he's not his king and to leave him to die.
You're my king! No, I'm not!
In the comics, this mental breakdown occurs while Ezekiel is telling this story to Michonne in the flashback at the very end of issue 118. At the beginning of issue 119, he essentially tells Michonne he can't be his people's king anymore, just like he tells Jerry right before Shiva dies.
I'm not your king!
Jerry doesn't say a word, but Michonne gives him a swift knock across the head and tells him to sack up, man. In either iteration, Shiva's death proved to be a major turning point in the war for Ezekiel. Similar to our other comic to show recaps, a lot of this episode's storyline did not come from the comics. Scenes like Ezekiel's very short-term kidnapping, Carol's infiltration and shootout, Rick and Daryl's expedition for the guns, none of this occurs in the comics. However, Shiva's death is a huge similarity between the two, and they play out almost identically. Rest in peace, Shiva. Moving past that. Again, make sure to pick up volumes 20 and 21 of the book so you can read up on the events of All Out War in the comics. Like this video, comment below if there's any comic to show comparisons that we missed, and subscribe to Skybound. Be on the lookout for more episodes of Panel to Screen as Season 8 continues.